Good afternoon. My name is Alyza Lewin. For over 20 years, I have been practicing law together with my father, Nathan Lewin. Together, we have handled numerous cases of significance to the Jewish community and Israel, including the landmark case, Boehm versus the Holy Land Foundation, which was the first case brought in the US under the Anti-Terrorism Act against domestic-based groups that provide material support for terror. Our Boehm case exposed the Hamas fundraising network in the United States and established a vehicle for victims of terror to achieve some small measure of justice. My father and I also handled the Zivotofsky Jerusalem passport case, which established that the President of the United States has the exclusive authority to recognize foreign sovereigns. President Trump exercised this authority when he recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and the Golan Heights as being in and part of Israel. Many people don't realize that the reason no one has challenged either of those actions in court is because of the Zivotofsky case. There are well over 100 cases pending against President Trump seeking to block actions that he has taken as president. But there are 0 cases challenging President Trump's recognition of Jerusalem and the Golan Heights. Because in Zivotofsky, the Supreme Court determined that the president, and the president alone, has the recognition power. So no court in the United States can undo President Trump's recognition. A year ago, in addition to my law practice, I became president of the Louis D. Brandeis Center for Human Rights Under Law. The Brandeis Center is an independent nonprofit. Our mission is to advance the civil and human rights of the Jewish people and to promote justice for all. We're not affiliated with Brandeis University. We're just named for the same justice. At the Brandeis Center, we utilize legal initiatives to combat anti-Semitism with a particular focus on higher education. Today, however, I'd like to discuss with you problems that go beyond the university campuses. Some of you may recall that about a month ago, an imam from Texas, Omar Suleiman, was invited one morning to deliver the opening prayer in the US House of Representatives. The content of the prayer he delivered was not objectionable. What was objectionable was that Imam Suleiman had a history of making incendiary remarks about Israel and Zionists. Imam Suleiman had wished for a third Palestinian Intifada uprising. He'd likened Israeli soldiers to Nazis. He'd wished for the end of Zionism, and he'd called Zionists, quote, the enemy of God and of humanity as a whole. It was also reported that Imam Suleiman supported BDS. As a result, some representatives and media said that Imam Suleiman was anti-Semitic and he should never have been invited to deliver the opening prayer. Imam Suleiman sought to defend himself, and he published an op-ed in the Dallas Morning News. And he said, and I quote, "I have never attacked the Jewish community or peddled conspiracies about it. So imagine my surprise to be accused of anti-Semitism," close quote. He went on to say, quote, "I have spent my life fighting bigotry, whether targeted at my Jewish brethren or at my own community or at anyone else. One thing I have never been is anti-Semitic." And most of the members of the Jewish community accepted his explanation and had no response. So here is the question. If you claim to support Jews but oppose Zionists, are you an anti-Semite? Here is an imam who has preached violence toward Israel, who seeks the destruction of the Jewish state, who equates Israelis to Nazis, and says Zionists are the enemy of all humanity, and we cannot figure out whether or not he is an anti-Semite? Why? Because he says and claims that after the massacre in Pittsburgh, he participated in an interfaith program in support of the Jewish community? So I ask you, is it possible to support Jews but oppose Zionists? The answer is no. Why? Because Zionism is an integral part of Jewish identity. Zionism, the yearning and desire of Jews to exercise their right to self-determination and to reestablish a Jewish homeland here in the land of Israel, is an inherent ancestral and ethnic Jewish characteristic. Zionism as a political movement may have originated in the 19th century, but this yearning for Zion, this desire for Jews to return to their ancestral homeland, that's thousands of years old. That's as old as the Jewish exile itself. To be a Zionist means to support the right of Jewish self-determination in our ancestral homeland. If I celebrate the fact that Jews have returned once again to this land, that Israel exists, I am a Zionist. Those who oppose Zionism deny Jews this right. The International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, the IHRA definition, the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, includes as an example of anti-Semitism, and I quote, denying the Jewish people their right to self-determination, e.g., by claiming that the existence of a state of Israel is a racist endeavor, close quote. The IHRA definition recognizes that denying this fundamental core Jewish belief is de facto anti-Semitism. My maternal grandmother was born here in the old city of Jerusalem, not far from here, when it was under Ottoman rule. She was a sixth-generation Jerusalemite. I have ancestors who came to live here in Jerusalem in the early 1800s, not because there was a modern state of Israel here, but out of this deep sense that as Jews, this was their home. This was where they belonged. So this yearning for Zion, it's the glue that kept Jews together for millennia. For centuries, Jews have not only prayed facing Jerusalem, but they've prayed to return to Jerusalem. L'shana ha'ba'ah b'Yerushalayim, next year in Jerusalem. We say it each year at the Passover Seder and at the conclusion of Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. Do you know that over half of the 613 mitzvot, the commandments, are connected to the land of Israel and can only be fulfilled here in the land of Israel? Our connection to this land is so strong that for thousands of years, wherever Jews have lived, they have prayed for rain, not where they reside, but for rain here in the land of Israel. This yearning for Zion has been a source of Jewish strength. Our shared past and common dreams for the future bind us together. But our enemies have discovered this source of our strength. And now they are trying to weaken us by separating the Jew from his Zionism. It's like the Philistines. When they discovered that the source of Samson's strength was his hair, cut his hair, they realized, and you weaken him. So too are our enemies today, Israel's enemies, seeking to weaken us. Cut off our hair, pry Zionism away from the Jew, insist that Zionism cannot be a part of Judaism, and you weaken us. You weaken our unity, you weaken our resolve, and you ultimately destroy the land of Israel and the people of Israel. Our enemies have also realized that they benefit when we Jews argue among ourselves. And boy, do we love to argue among ourselves. We spend so much time debating terminology. Is it an occupation? Is it not an occupation? Is it apartheid? Is it not apartheid? Is it anti-Semitism? Is it not anti-Semitism? Is it a dog whistle or is it not a dog whistle? When we debate each other, we lose sight of the enemy. And so our enemies, they foster and they fuel these internal divisions by encouraging Jews who have shed their Zionism to demand the same of other Jews. Make no mistake about it. What is happening today on campuses and beyond is part of an organized, well-funded strategy to marginalize pro-Israel Zionists and deny them a place in society. When Students for Justice in Palestine, an organization that's supported by American Muslims for Palestine, held its annual conference last November at UCLA, they posted their goals on their website. One goal described SJP's attitude toward Zionism. Goal number 2 was titled, quote, "Regearing from Mythos to Action," and it said, quote, "The aim of this theme is to remind us that Zionism is not an insurmountable force. We know that Zionism is ethnic cleansing, destruction, mass expulsion, apartheid, and death," close quote. The goal went on to say, quote, "The reason we can have hope is that Zionism is a human ideology and a set of laws that have been challenged and can be destroyed. This is a reminder that the successful challenges to Zionism have come from direct action," close quote. And then, according to SJP's stated goal, they went on and said, "Zionism can be, quote, broken down and dismantled," close quote. Most importantly, however, on its website, SJP explained that at their conference, they would not just talk theory, but rather they would also, and I quote, "focus on developing actionable local and regional campaigns with clear targets." Okay, if you are a student group that equates Zionism with ethnic cleansing, destruction, mass expulsion, apartheid, and death, and your group's stated goal is to, quote, "destroy" and, quote, "dismantle Zionism," and you plan to develop, quote, "actionable local and regional campaigns with clear targets," I ask you, who are those targets? Pro-Israel Zionists, of course. And what do those campaigns look like? They look like what we saw last year at New York University when 53 student organizations representing the entire progressive community on campus pledged not only to support BDS and to boycott Israel, but to also boycott the pro-Israel student groups on campus. Meaning they said they would not engage with or dialogue with or co-sponsor events with the pro-Israel students. What message does that convey to a pro-Israel student at NYU? It's saying to that student, if you want to join our campus community, if you want to be a full-fledged member and demonstrate with us on climate change, women's rights, or gay rights, we'll accept you on one condition. Check your support for Israel at the door. Shed that part of your Jewish identity and you can join us. That is no different than demanding that a student stop observing Shabbat or stop keeping kosher in order to gain admission. It's comparable to demanding that a Catholic student disavow the Vatican or a Muslim student shed his or her connection to Mecca. Excluding an individual in this manner on the basis of his or her identity is discrimination. This strategy is not limited to universities. This discriminatory conduct is spreading beyond the college campus. Just 2 weeks ago in Washington, D.C., at the D.C. Dyke March, organizers of the march informed Jewish participants that they could wear religious paraphernalia, such as a kippah or a talit, but items that reflected support for Israel, such as the Jewish pride flag, a rainbow flag with a Star of David in the middle, were prohibited. The Dyke March leaders, who controlled access to a march that was designed to celebrate diversity and inclusion, were demanding that Jewish Zionists hide or shed a key component of their Jewish identity in order to participate. No other group was charged such a price for admission. So why is it important for you as lawyers to understand this? Why is it so important that you be able to articulate how Zionism is a key component of Jewish identity, and how pro-Israel Zionists are being discriminated against on the basis of this shared ethnic characteristic? The answer, my friends, lies in the law. We're getting to the end. Our laws are designed to protect individuals from harassment and discrimination. The law does not protect you from an opinion you find offensive. In the United States, even hate speech is protected speech. So if we want to be able to effectively utilize our legal tools, we must accurately articulate what is happening as harassment and discrimination. If we fail to do this, we won't be able to use the tools in our toolbox. If we permit administrators on university campuses, representatives on Capitol Hill, and the general public to perceive the situation as merely a political disagreement, where each side takes offense at the other side's position, then we neuter the most important weapons in our arsenal. So I implore you, and this is the end, for several reasons, articulate what is happening using the language of discrimination. First, it is essential that the broad Jewish community push back hard against the notion espoused by Jewish Voices for Peace and other anti-Israel groups that Zionism is not Judaism. If we fail to publicly challenge this misconception, our silence suggests acquiescence. The first item in the settlement agreement that the Lawfare Project reached with San Francisco State University, which you're going to hear about in just a minute from Brooke Goldstein, required the university to issue a public statement recognizing that Zionism is a key component of the identity of many students on the university campus. Every university across the United States and around the globe should be issuing similar statements as a way of reaching out to demonstrate support for the pro-Israel Zionist students that are under attack today. But how can we expect or demand universities to make such a statement if we, the broad Jewish community, are not making it? And second, it's imperative for the future of our children that we teach them how to distinguish between those that seek the destruction of Israel and the Jewish people and those who genuinely seek coexistence. If we define Zionism as support for the right of Jewish self-determination in our ancestral homeland, and we recognize that Zionism is a key component of Jewish identity, then those who deny us that right, those who say we do not have a right to a Jewish state in any borders here in this land of Israel, then their criticism of Israel is anti-Semitic, even if it is couched in human rights terminology. Because if you do not believe in the Jewish state of Israel, that the Jewish state of Israel has a right to exist, then your criticism of Israel is not intended to reform the policies of the current government, but rather it's intended to destroy the state of Israel. We don't want our children to ally themselves with groups that deny our right to self-determination or our right to express our Zionist part of our Jewish identity. We have to teach our children to understand that this denial is racist, discriminatory, and anti-Semitic, whether it comes from non-Jews or Jews. And finally, we have to consistently articulate what is happening as harassment and discrimination so that we can effectively utilize the law. Ostracizing, marginalizing, and excluding pro-Israel Zionists on the basis of their identity is not a speech issue. It is unlawful conduct, and it must be confronted as such. So you are lawyers. You understand the power of the law. You can make a difference. You've just spent 3 energizing days here learning and networking, and now is the time to turn words into action. Be courageous. Help our children. Help Israel. Our future depends on you.